welcome to today's little GM prep stream.
Our illustrious champion
Welcome
returns.
back.
Welcome
Today I'm gonna do a little bit of the prepperinos for Court of Swords. For folks who may not be caught up, this is your spoiler warning. This is your hella spoiler warning. So, this is essentially episode 40.5.
You have returned.
Joe, welcome back. This is essentially episode 40.5. I know there is an episode 41 and episode 42, but they are a side story. They're outside the canon. I am doing prep for episode 41A. 41 on the main timeline, 43 if you collect them all together. This shit is getting complicated. That's okay. Basically, the stuff I'm spoiling is any kind of mainline Court of Sword content. So I'm going to spoil everything. I mean, not everything. That would take a long time. But I'm going to spoil potentially the current arc leading up to episode 41. And I'm also going to be spoiling episodes 42 through infinity. Because I'm going to be talking about some like background stuff that maybe the players will discover IRL. And if you want to discover it with the players, time to stuff some goblins in your ears and pull an Aurum Vorax over your head so you can't see, and then flee the room. Because I'm gonna be laying down all the bullshit from my GM notebook. This current GM notebook, which actually is almost full. I think I need to go and purchase another one. So just be aware that this is what's going to happen. That if you are a fan, if you are tuning in because you like the Court of Swords, get ready for spoilage. Okay? Okay? Yes? Good? Ready? You're happy with that? All right, everybody. So hello and welcome. We're going to be prepping. Essentially, I think what I need to prep today is the House of the Falcon. I need to make like a little spooky manor dungeon thing. I went back and I looked over my notes, and I think that's the thing that the players are most likely to go and dick around with. The party halfling, right? She's getting ready to go and do her thing, right? Jiva's gonna go and try to rob the House of the Falcon, and I think that Berg, Enoch, and Ramus are gonna go along because they're greedy and because they want gold. Do you want me to spoil? Should I spoil the big mystery of the house? You want me to talk about it? Want some backstory? Okay, so sometime like a long ass time ago, like a long ass time. I don't know when. I can't figure it out. There was a band. This is like pre-courts, right? Pre-court time. So, we divide human history in the Court of Swords between the forming of the courts and prehistory, right? And I imagine this to be several thousand years. If we think about, like, this is the dividing line. The formation of the court is the setting of year zero for Court of Swords, right? If you live in the court, you measure time based not only on your own local stuff, right? Everybody has kind of local calendars, but on the day of the Great Conclave, the formation of the courts, the setting of four. When we started to create as a society the rules, right? There must be a king, a queen, a page, and a knight. The elements are sacred, right? The suits are sacred, and the world is structured as such. Above us are the arcana. So unto the fountain we might know and understand its power, the creation of clerics, etc., etc. So anyway, this happened 2,000 to 3,000 years ago. I definitely envision Penguin in Space resubscribing, and that's a good vision. But I definitely envision if we ever did a one-shot or two-shot or mini campaign, I feel like the next time we do that, I want to set it in the like Jomon era, the pre-founding of the courts, right? Ban clerics, ban wizards, have a party of like sorcerers and rangers and druids, and kind of explore the Iron Age or Bronze Age equivalent, I guess, of the Court of Swords. These many years long past. But whatever. That's a dream.
Returns.
That's a dream of a game master that is not today. Ekthroy, welcome back. Here comes the King of Griffins. Your Highness.
Returned.
So anyway, that's the thing I would want to do. Yeah, like a Conan, swords and sandals, prehistory kind of jam. Anyway, so where was I? Oh yeah, long time ago, in this kind of sort of pre-modern era, there was still humans, right? Humans still existed in the world, and they wandered around from place to place. They were predominantly nomadic. You know, I'm drawing a lot from like Mongolia, from the Bedouin, from the Ainu. These kind of indigenous pre-civilized, civilized, whatever, gross, cultures. And I think they're like hunter-gatherers and sort of wanderer nomads. And they worship ancestor spirits. They worship the spirits of the earth. They worship the gods directly, right? They tap into the fountain more emotively than they currently do. There's no sort of studying of the fountain's facets. In this time, I think as now, because class struggle is the only struggle, there were classes of people, right? There were nobles, there were kings, there were these sort of wanderer lords, people who had more things than other people. And I think we were seeing the beginning, probably around when we started to see the beginning of cities, the beginning of foundations. I'm thinking like Londinium, sort of these fortress towns against the monsters of the world started to build up. Walls were becoming a thing, and in one of these, there was like a bad thing that had happened, right? There was like a plague of monsters. There were like shadows or bad shit, and I think that this like noble, sort of proto noble lord, had his manor. Andy, welcome back. Dimitri, here comes that sub. Thank you. So I'm thinking that there was this noble lord, and he had a fortress, and he was protecting himself and his family from the bad shit that lived out there. And he hired, like proto knights, like warriors to defend him. He probably had his own sorcerer. And I think that a band of beleaguered travelers came to this place. And these beleaguered travelers were maybe not entirely human, right? Maybe they had, affronted a wolf god sometime in the distant past, and they themselves had been cursed to carry this dark magic within them. But they had it handled. This was hundreds of years ago. It had been passed on family to family, and they could not die. They were cursed by this immortality of shapeshifting. I'm jumping into the sort of middle of their story, but we've seen visions of the beginning of their story. Hunters of wolves in the woods. But anyway, these cursed travelers, they came to the man, and they begged for succor. They begged for a place to stay during the dark night, fear that the creatures of the world would get at them. And the lord of the manor turned them out, and in doing so, offended them. And so their shamans, their druids, the sort of magic users of this tribe cursed the Lord to darkness, right? And he was maybe consumed by bloodlust, and killed his family inside the walls, and fled into the darkness of the woods. So this kind of thing, this idea of the like wandering people issuing a curse. It's a story that has been passed on, right? Like there's a tradition among some people who remember this tale that if wanderers come to your door, seeking aid, you take them in, right? That this is a thing that is known. And I think that this tradition was passed, this land that used to be like a rocky forest. Over the course of our grand history, the forest died away, and the trees became withered, and in its place, a great desert grew. And in this desert was founded the city of Brass, and in the city of Brass, even several thousand years later, the noble houses remember this cautionary tale. It's become a story of like, don't turn away the smelly outsiders who look like dogs, because A, they might curse you, and B, hospitality keeps human civilization together. So cut to the modern time, whereby either descendants or these very cursed folk themselves came back to the land of their birth. They wandered home through the desert and found their way to the city of Brass, wherein they found themselves surrounded by a different sort of monster, the monster that is man. And in this civilized place, they found that they were in need once again of aid. And so they came to this great and noble house bearing the sigil of the falcon, which perhaps they remembered as a sign from years long past. And they knocked upon the gate and did ask for succor once more. But unremembering of the lore of the past, the lord of the House of the Falcon said, "Nay unto you, smelly dogs, get ye gone, find ye another place." But these dogs were a bit more rabid than perhaps their forebearers, and yes, cursed the lord of the house. And I think the jam here is that their curse was about reliance on the kindness of others, right? That, like, I think the curse probably was worded something like, you who cannot give kindness must now live forever off the life of those around you. That you can now no longer sustain yourself, but must rely on the blood of others to sustain you. And so cursed, finding himself repulsed from the hallowed light of the sun, which once he worshipped, the noble lord fled to the basement of his manor to lock himself away to undergo the dark change, and in doing so allowed the gates and the walls of his house to be unbarred and let the wolves in. And so I think before we meet the characters, and this happened like maybe, I don't know, like several months ago. I think the change that's happening to the Lord of the House of the Falcon is taking place over a long period of time. He's very slowly withering away. And all of his servants fled or were horrifically maimed, eaten, consumed by these shapeshifters who then lived in the garden and whose magic took over the place and caused it to revert to an ancient primordial state, which we saw it in. So basically what we've got is a pack of werewolves. A pack of werewolves, essentially. Werewolves, they're shapeshifters. I'm using some modified werewolf stats to represent them in the game, but they're immortal, cursed shapeshifters. I'm drawing really heavily from The Devourers, which is a book that I read fairly recently by Indra Das. It's set in India, and it's about shapeshifters. It's fucking awesome. If you like werewolves, if you're a fan of like Neil Gaiman, the style is quite similar, but it's set in India, and it's about werewolves, and it's so fucking cool, and it really inspired me to create these guys. So this pack, which now I guess has been like pretty decimated. Welcome back, Path. I mean, more than decimated. They've been reduced to a pack of one. Their pack leader, Mitra. Mitra the Grey, aka Steel Tusk, aka 100 Hungry Ghosts, cannot die, cannot be killed. It is his curse to live forever, and he's the only one left because the player has murdered all of his brood, and he's the one who cursed the Lord of the Manor. And the manor lord is slowly becoming some kind of hideous vampire, feeding off of the only servant willing to stay by her lord's side, the spooky lady that we saw in the manor. So it's her and him and the miscellaneous spirits of darkness and death that maybe remain. Probably some spawn, right? Some his first victims, the other members of the house. And overall, like, the gods are just pissed about this whole situation, right? The gods are not happy about this. the players, and if you want to, you can remind them, but the players have been operating under a fateless. They're sailing without a tiller here, because if you remember, they haven't had their fortune read in a long time. This current iteration of the party, in fact, has had no fortune read. So the gods have turned their eyes from them, and they are going into this cursed place. So I can kind of do whatever. I mean, I could always do whatever I wanted to them, but especially now. Now, if they turn to the gods, if they seek a blessing, especially a blessing of the sun, this could be good. But Ramus himself is a bit of a spit in the eye to the god of the sun, right? Now, like, it's not like the gods care. The gods are false. Big spoiler warning. There's no such thing. The gods that we worship in Court of Swords, they're false. They're a reflection. We're staring into a mirror. They're Jungian archetypes. They're not real, right? When we pray to the sun, no one listens. There's no voice to speak unto us prophecy. We're just like the Arcana are a fake way of understanding a divine source of power that humans can't figure out. Like, there's no, yeah. So that's, the fountain is very real, but the gods are big old fakes. Anyway, so the players have to contend with, I guess, eventually a vampire. They need to contend with this cursed were creature, this shapeshifter. And I guess they want to get into this vault. So what I'm going to need is to understand kind of what the manor itself is about, in case they go into it. And if I were playing like Dungeon World or something, I probably wouldn't need to map this out, but it's D&D, so I feel like that's the thing. I feel like I need to figure this out. But I don't know, do you have questions? Do you have things that you're curious about right now? Like, I can think of a bunch of different ways to solve this. Like, if they go back to Inanna, Inanna might be able to help them. They could go to a church. They could do some more research, but yeah. Oh yeah, the vampires. Yes. No, if they go in and they try to fight the Lord of the House of the Falcon, they're fucked. They're so fucked. And I'm not going to change. I'm not going to nerf the vampire. Like, they do not. If they wake him up and draw his ire, they're toast. They're totally fucking toast. Is the fountain sentient? No. The fountain is like it's like a sun. It's a source of like divine in the sense of like type of power. It's a divine power. And it just emits magical radiation. The only way that humans can funnel that divine radiation is either through their blood, if they're sorcerers, or by way of only channeling a facet of it, right, through the arcana, becoming clerics. It's a divine source of energy, and they don't humans can't handle it directly. The sentient thing is okay, so let me lay out the cosmology for you. All right. So I know I've done this before, but like, just to get everybody understanding kind of where we're at. So there's, God, I wish I could, like, all right, if you imagine the divine sphere, right? There's the earth, right? The world of the courts, which is laid out like a flat plane. And out at the edges, like, it doesn't wrap around. Out at the edges, I think, maybe surrounding, and it's like all the way around and then like sort of above, metaphysically bordering the world on top and outside. There's heaven, right? So heaven is both literally sort of like above and outside of the world, like an umbrella, exactly. So the umbrella of heaven, the divine umbrella, surmounts and surrounds the world, and from it, the divine, the celestial order, the bureaucracy of heaven, operates. So the bureaucracy of heaven is both a place, right? Heaven itself is a place, and the bureaucracy is a thing, and it is composed of the myriad gods of the earth. Each god is responsible for something in the world, large or small. They are responsible for there is a god of sky, there is a god of clouds, there is a god of the earth itself, but there are gods of individual mountains, there are gods of rivers, there are like gods of particular locations, like villages and what have you. So there's this like massive hierarchy of gods. The god of mountains, Oyama, mighty god of mountains. He is the god responsible for all of the gods of individual mountains, who they themselves are responsible for the gods of individual caves within those mountains, so forth and so on. As you can imagine, it is an enormous pyramid with the most powerful gods at the top. The thing that powers heaven is the fountain. The fountain is an eternal, divine, pure energy source that is both contained. It's very much like a nuclear reactor, right? Its power is contained and managed by the bureaucracy of heaven, right? The bureaucracy of heaven's job is to make sure that ultimately they have a kind of a fucked up job, because their job is to essentially create enlightenment, right? All beings should become enlightened and united with the fountain. The fountain ultimately, as we've discussed in previous sessions, will consume everything in its glorious light and return the earth and creation to its original pure state before everything got all fucked up and corporeal, right? That's the ultimate goal of heaven on paper. But the gods want to exist. Right? So they're working for this goal on paper. They're paying lip service to the idea that, yes, ultimate enlightenment is the goal. But really, the gods are like, yeah, but if there are no mountains, what am I god of? I'm god of nothing. I'm united with the great divine power source, but like, fuck that. So there's a limited number of souls in the universe, and they're constantly reincarnated, and they're being cleaned and purified, so that eventually they can rejoin the fountain, and the fountain becomes ultimate power and absorbs everything in the universe. And now nothing is anything but pure light and energy. Hooray! But functionally, most of the gods acknowledge, like, let's just not do our job too good. Now, the thing about the gods is they can't become enlightened. Right? The gods are outside. You don't become a god, right? You don't, like, you're not born a snail. Your soul slowly reincarnates up to angelhood, in which case you ascend to the fountain itself. The gods are set aside. The gods are the caretakers of the world. So ultimately they serve man and elf, well, dwarf and halfling, not elves. Elves, we'll talk about that. So anyway, creation, the divine umbrella, the celestial bureaucracy, whose job it is to shepherd humanity into the fountain. The fountain emits pure and perfect power that spreads out into the world, keeps the world going. It powers things like gravity and moves the sun through the sky and moves the moon through it's the ultimate power source in the universe, but it is slowly being fed by souls to eventually overtake the entire universe, which is what they want. Below that, and I think created by the very literal shadow of, now remember, in the literal sense, if the fountain is above, the fountain casts its divine light, it's a metaphor, it's also literal, casts its divine light upon the disk of creation, creating a shadow underneath creation, right? Underneath reality, there is darkness. And in that darkness dwell the Mara. Now, the Mara they're not gods. They're not human. They're not the Arcana. No one really knows what they are, even heaven. No one's really totally sure what the deal is with them. They dwell in darkness, they hate the fountain, and they want to counteract the structures of reincarnation, right? They want to lure humans away from enlightenment. They want to give them earthly corporeal power. They want to corrupt and tempt them. The gods' words, the priest's words, not mine. But they want to pull humans off the great wheel. They stand in opposition to heaven. They stand in opposition to the fountain. They stand in opposition to the great wheel of creation. No one really knows why, though. The Mara are infinitely more personable. The Mara are they are strange and unpredictable, and they are hard to understand. So they dwell in the darkness below. They dwell in the darkness below the below Earth, below, literally and figuratively. And Ashley asked in the game, yes. So here's the thing: you could get on a boat, sail out past the Court of Cups, keep sailing, sail, and eventually you will reach the piers of heaven, right? You could gather a caravan, and you could wander west. Desert, wander, heat, light, whatever. Eventually, you'd reach the borders of heaven, right? North, south. Ostensibly, if you could find a way to survive it, you could just fly straight up and fly your way to heaven. There's also a bunch of like magical ways to access heaven, gates and doors, ways for people to come and go, but it doesn't happen that often. Azamar are the servants of heaven on earth, right? We've seen them. Azamar live in heaven or live on earth, but serve like heaven, the bureaucracy, directly. So that's their jam. Yes. There are many stories of people who've tried to climb. There's like, I think in the Court of Coins somewhere, there's like the biggest mountain in the whole world, and supposedly its peak pierces heaven, right? That you can climb Everest basically and get your way up there. So outside of this sort of half and half marble of the Court of Swords world, there is the void, the great void of darkness. It is a cursed place. We want to fill with the divine light of the fountain, right? The fountain's ultimate goal is to consume all of this planar space. But out there, it's assumed to be nothingness, right? And this is why shit like the elves are so confusing, because elves are from outside the order. They are sort of invisible to heaven. And so they've sort of pierced this space with their transdimensional portal technology and are attempting to consume. They're the like the ash borer. They're the golden beetles that have wriggled their way into the earth and are consuming it from within. Yeah, they're like transdimensional space elves. And they're essentially like Kryptonians, kind of. Like, I envision them very much like locusts, in the sense that like they've consumed all the worlds that they've lived on, and they've come here to consume this one. But there's some kind of divine like civil war between them. So they have had some problems, and we don't know about the factions of the elves yet, but they definitely like have come here. Some of them have come here, and I think they're bringing their war to the earth. They're murder fucking their way across the universe. There are dark elves, and there are elves, and yes, they're inspired very much by Kryptonians, by the Protoss, by a bit like Tyranids, but also a bit like the Eldar. Winter and Summer Court, yeah, exactly. You got it. That kind of division between the light and the dark. And I mean, who knows, right? Who knows what's gonna happen with them? They represent one facet of the eventual future of the Court of Swords. What would happen if the elves got their hands on the infinite power supply that is the fountain? Who even knows? That'd be fucked up, right? So yeah, welcome back, Sticks. Thank you. Cool. So that's what's happening. There are realms beyond our own, and that's that. There is there are elves coming to the world and causing some trouble. There are a limited number. Yeah. So somebody asked me, there's a limited number of souls in the universe. There's like 1,000,000,001 or whatever, or like 11 billion, or, like there's literally a number of souls, and they're not just human souls, but all souls, because souls, the idea is that the souls, there's no new ones being created. They just exist, but they're slowly dwindling off, right? Like as they are reaching ascension, it happens very rarely, but as an angel reaches the apex of their power, right? Like when you die as an Azamar, if you've done well, you become a exactly some multiple of 4. If you die, actually it'd be a multiple of 5, because the 4 thing, it's like 4 and null, right? Because the elements are earth, water, air, fire, and void, which is the cursed element. Which brings to mind, what's the 5th? Like, if the universe really operates on principles of 5s, but humans misinterpreted them, what's the 5th court? Where is the court of void? What is the 5th place? Right? King, queen, knight, page. What is that 5th thing? Anyway, so there is a limited number of souls, and they're slowly dwindling away as they reach ascension. But the powers of heaven are keeping that process intentionally slow. So in a way, the Mara kind of serve the same goal as the personal goals of the gods. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, the jester, the fool, something like, well, the fool is part of the arcana, but yeah, there's definitely like the truth is in this 5th space. Love. Anyway, so yeah, that's the cosmology of the world. Just because the gods are fake doesn't mean they don't have power. The gods are a lens. They're a way for humanity to understand. They're a way for humanity to understand the power of the fountain and harness it. Right? There would be no clerical magic if we didn't have the arcana, because you can't safely pull power from the fountain without some filter, whether it's your blood or wizardly training or cleric shit or whatever. So that's how that goes. That's the world in which we live. So I think that these shapeshifters, their curse comes from. They weren't cursed by the gods. They weren't cursed by the Mara, because neither of those things existed in their current state. I think they were just cursed by an angry god, a powerful angry god a long time ago. And so now we have these shapeshifters, and we have this dungeon, and in the moment, I need to put together something. And the gods are pissed. They're pissed especially at JP's character. They're pissed at Enoch because Enoch let his house of 4 crumble, right? Because Enoch used to be, it was Enoch, Lamech, Naba, and Idris, right? There was 4, and that was a safe and sound space. But like they've broken their luck. There's 4 players, but they're avoiding the fates. They haven't read their cards, and Enoch let that house of 4 come apart. So they're going in cursed, and that's not safe. Yeah. So let's talk about dungeon stuff, shall we? Let's try to put something together.